Here everybody comes. Welcome, welcome. There they are.
Yay. Hey, everyone. Okay, so wow, we are starting right on time and there's already 200 people here. This is fantastic. So hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. We'll be getting started shortly. My name is Ryan. I'm on the Botanic Wise team, and I'll be co-hosting the webinar with Abby and Karis. And I am introducing some of the technical details before we start with a more official introduction from Karis. So I want to start by saying a few things about Zoom and how you can make the most out of your experience tonight. You can see in your top right, you can switch the different views from gallery view to speaker view. So I want to invite folks to go into gallery view, and if you want, you can have your camera on or off. It's totally up to you. But if you go to gallery, we can all wave hello, which is really fun. So let's all wave hi. Hey, everybody. It's so fun to see everybody here. And wow, there's 214 people and even more coming in as we speak. So I want to say a couple more things about Zoom. There is live transcription happening, some closed captioning. So if you want to turn on closed captioning, you can do that in your Zoom toolbar. You'll see on your Zoom toolbar right in the same area where you can mute, stop video, leave the meeting. You can also turn on the closed captions. So if anybody has any questions about that, you can send us an email. We'll be watching the support email throughout this event, and you can also contact us in the chat. So the chat is where there's going to be some chit chat during this event. It's also where we'll be doing some Q&A later. I just want to point out that you can, if the chat notifications are bothering you, sometimes it's helpful if you just move your Zoom window down a little bit, and it can sort of hide the notifications, or sometimes there might even be ways to turn off the notifications. And I will actually look that up and leave a note about it in the chat. And again, this meeting is being recorded. If you want, you can turn off your video if you don't want to be shown in the recording, although you won't be shown in the recording unless you speak toward the end when we're doing some Q&A. So we'll just be aware of that. We do ask that people stay muted during the presentation part. And yeah, so if anything else comes up, please let Abby or me know in the chat, and we'll be hanging out in there throughout this event. So excited to welcome everybody here and get started with Karis and Deb. So as we do that, I would love for you to say hi in the chat and let us know where you're tuning in from. It's really cool to see all the different places and near and far away that are making it to this event. All right. So, Karis.
Yes.
Take it away.
Okay. So my name is Karis Lindruth. I'm the founder and organizer of Botanic Wise, and I'm so pleased to welcome everybody to Seeds and Soil, a very special presentation that Deb Soule, our special guest, has put heart and soul into. She's really worked very hard on this class tonight, and I know you're going to get a lot out of it. I also wanted to just give you a spoiler alert that at the end of all the content, we are going to talk about her new gardening program. So if you're interested in studying gardening with Deb up close and personal, stick around. So just giving you a heads up about that. If you have any questions, Ryan and Abby are here in the background, and I'm here in the background. You can ask questions during the class in the chat. And I think I'm ready to introduce our special guest. It's always my pleasure to introduce Deb because she was one of my first herbal teachers and inspired me right from the very beginning when she was quite young and I was quite younger to love plants and to walk the plant path. And one of the very first classes I ever took from her was a gardening class on planting for pollinators. And I was so inspired to think about these small beings that exist in our gardens, to care for them, to tend for them by planting for them. I still remember that. That was probably 25 years, maybe even longer. So Deb is an avid gardener. She's well known in the biodynamic gardening community. She's also an herbalist and medicine maker. She's the founder of the Avena Botanicals Garden and Avena Botanicals Apothecary. She's also an author of several books, including the handbook, the Herbal Handbook for Women. I think I have that wrong, actually, but sorry, Deb. And the How to Move Like a Gardener, which is an incredible book outlining some of her biodynamic practices. And then most recently, a very beautiful book called The Healing Garden, which she also taught a Botanic Wise program on last year. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you, Deb, and let you get started.
Thank you, Karis and Abby and Emma and Ryan. You're all awesome. I am incredibly honored to be here with each of you. And yeah, there we go. I really want to say thank you to everybody for joining in tonight. And so Botanic Wise is a wonderful team to be working with, and just a lot of gratitude to each of you for showing up tonight. So we are going to do a walk here through imagery. So I just wanted to honor today. Here we are today, an International Women's Day. And I wanted to invite each of you, when we finish tonight, to consider lighting a candle. I do have a candle lit here. And when we finish, perhaps we can have a few hundred candles going tonight in honor of women and girls worldwide, and in the spirit of our hearts praying for peace around the world. So I invite you to light a candle. And also, I just wanted to invite you at this moment to just close your eyes for a moment if you're comfortable. And I'm going to read this beautiful Robin Wall Kimmerer quote, and for you just to let yourself infuse with Robin's words. She is the author of Braiding Sweetgrass, which I think many people are familiar with that book. And Robin says, we need acts of restoration, not only for polluted waters and degraded lands, but also for our relationship to the world. We need to restore honor to the way we live, so that when we walk through the world, we don't have to avert our eyes with shame, so that we can hold our heads up high and receive the respectful acknowledgement of the rest of Earth's beings. So I wanted to begin by saying where I live near the coast of Maine, what we call Maine. This is a photograph I took at the sunrise at the winter solstice. And throughout this time together, I will be just continuously reminding us of how incredibly gifted we are to be aware of the rhythms of the sun and the moon and the seasons. They are the guiding foundations for our work with seeds and soil. So I want to honor this sunrise at the winter solstice. We are in the Northern Hemisphere, and this is at December 21st, where the sun rises in the most southeastern part. And then the sun begins to make that journey back north. And of course, we are close to the spring equinox right now, where the sun has begun the journey back north. The sun is rising over Penobscot Bay, and I live in the territory of the Wabanaki people, the people of the dawn. So I just wanted to honor the land which is unceded where I live. The Wabanaki people are made of the Maliseet, the Mi'kmaq, the Passamaquoddy, and the Penobscot. And the border of Maine and Canada goes right through the territory of the Mi'kmaq peoples. And recently, I was pointed to the Penobscot word for soil. Also, another kind of understanding is of turned earth. And this is a word that is, I think, very, very important to the Penobscot people. My friend who first shared with me about this word said that the Penobscot teacher who was sharing this word in a class she was in actually wept when he spoke this word. So that is part of the, shall we say, the potency of soil, of earth, of being so sacred. So I just want to really honor where I am, and want to really encourage each of you, if you're unfamiliar with the territories of where you live, when you come back to review this slideshow, you will be able to pull up this map and be able to see whose territories you are in, and the languages and the treaties that were broken of the peoples of where your peoples first came from. So this is an important map for education for all of us. And when you are seeing whose territory you're in, just really want to encourage each of us to take up that work of learning the history of the peoples, the territories that we are in, and also beginning to really take up the work of repair and reciprocity, which is so important in this time that we're in. And I want to invite you also to just close your eyes for a moment. And I wanted to honor the 13 Indigenous grandmothers who are grandmothers from around the world that came together many years ago. And they are written about in this book called Grandmothers Counsel the World. And Carol says the 13 Indigenous grandmothers tell us that in the beginning, there was only one creator, one divine intelligence. And so all things created since the beginning of time are suffused with the same sacred essence. Thus, our very existence on earth implies a profound spiritual connection to the earth, to all of nature, and to the spirit world, as everything is a part of the one divine intelligence inherent in all of creation. And I want to honor Rocio Alacon. She is one of my primary teachers since the middle of the 1990s. And this is a picture I took of Rocio in 2008. I had the honor to spend 2 weeks with her in the Basque Country of the Spanish side, where she was doing her PhD research in the traditional medicinal uses of the native plants in this part of the Basque Country. And she is learning from a man who had been a shepherd for many, many, many years. And every spring, in that rhythm of spring, he would take the cows up into the higher levels of meadows and forests, and he just knew all the plants and all of their uses. So he was, again, sharing his wisdom with Rocio. And I just want to honor all Indigenous peoples around the world who have in their hearts that generosity of spirit of sharing plant knowledge and ensuring that it's passed on. And so in that spirit, I'm going to share some of my favorite books tonight. And the book on the right, Plants Have So Much to Give Us, All We Have to Do Is Ask, is one of these incredible, generous gifting of Iiwigara, who is an Ojibwe traditional healer and medicine person. And Mary was her student for many years, and Iiwigara requested Mary to write the book and to share Iiwigara's stories. And this is a beautiful book full of really special stories that I go back to this book again and again and again. And the book on the right, I wanted to honor the traditional healers of Central and South America. This is the telling the life of a traditional healer and midwife from Belize, Miss Beatrice. And she verbally told her story, and it was written down so that it could be passed on to others. And this is a book that Antonia from Urban Cura introduced me to this book and to this teacher, Enrique Salmon. And I'm not sure if I know how to say the name of the book correctly. Iiwigara, The Kinship of Plants and People. This is a beautiful book. And he writes in his book, Iiwigara channels the idea that all of life, spiritual and physical, is interconnected in a continual cycle, and expresses the belief that all life shares the same breath. We are all related to and play a role in the complexity of life. So that's a deeply indigenous worldview, which I think is very, very special for each of us in this journey that we're in for our shared humanity. And when he says how we share the same breath, this really took me to this image, which I also really love, coming from ancient Greece. So we are going to be just reminding ourselves that all around the planet in very ancient times, Earth is considered to be mother and sacred. And so Christopher, in his piece that he wrote in the book called Sacred Seed, he tells us the story of the female priest Pythia, who would sit kind of in this area where there was like a crack in the earth, and the sacred smoke, like the breath of the earth, her breathing would come up through, and she would receive the guidance to be able to answer the questions that people would come to her looking for the oracular answers. And so we see her named as a great goddess, as the mother of all gods, as Gaia, as the mother. And then we also begin to see this same understanding of Earth as mother in the very, very ancient Eastern Europe, in both the Neolithic and the Paleolithic times. And so I really wanted to honor Maria Gambutas tonight, who was a Lithuanian archaeologist and anthropologist. She wrote 3 phenomenal books, The Language of the Goddess, which I have noted her here. She says to us, it would seem logical to look for the origin of the earth fertility goddess at the dawn of agriculture. And because the Neolithic goddess had the ability to bring forth all life from her own body, she must have been also endowed with the power to nurture the seeds of the earth. And this very famous image is from the entrance to a cave in France that is 20 to 25,000 years old. So again, we are seeing these images of earth as sacred in old Europe. And here's a picture of Maria. I just wanted to say I had the great honor of meeting Maria in the late 1980s. And she and I took up a correspondence with each other. Her story is remarkable. I just have the deepest of respect for Maria. She did receive her PhD in archaeology, and she did so many different archaeological digs in different parts of Europe. And her book, The Language of the Goddess, which I have also quoted here, has hundreds and hundreds of images of these old ancient goddess figurines. And I think for me, I've been thinking about Maria a lot since last summer. And she passed away in 1994. And you will see, if you watch any of these videos, that she really speaks to the truth that in all the archaeological digs that she did, she never once found a weapon of war. So I might be a little teary here also as I think of Maria. And what I wanted to say about her videos is, if you're unfamiliar with Maria, especially if you are somebody with European ancestry, please consider, when you receive the recording of this talk, you'll be able to just click on them and watch them. And they were made over 30 years ago. There's different ones, and they're very like archival footage. You're not looking at like a spiffy, fancy 2022 documentary. You're looking at people who are documenting her and her work long before the technology was so savvy. So just stay with that, because you will hear the gems of Maria speaking such truth that is still so incredibly important in this world. And she never, I don't think, has been fully recognized for the magnificence of her work. So I want to just read this quote that she wrote. The Earth Mother is regarded as being pregnant in the spring and thus had to be protected and respected, especially on her name day, the 25th of March. It was a very grave sin for the peasants of Western Ukraine to strike the earth or to spit, dig holes, or plow. There is a saying in Poland and Russia that to strike the earth is the same as striking your own mother. If the Earth Mother is insulted, she will moan and groan. So I wanted just to invite you all also to mark on your calendar March 25th, that this is considered to be the name day of Earth Mother in old Europe, and that each of us in our own ways can offer our prayers and go outside and with your bare feet in your hands, touch the earth, kiss the earth, just give your deep, deep gratitude to our Mother Earth. And I also wanted to really honor the history of the African farmers and healers from the African continent. And many of you may know of Leah Penniman's book. I think it should be in every gardener's shelf. I think there's so much information in this book. And this is a beautiful drawing from the beginning of the book where they're dedicating the book to the ancestral grandmothers who braided the seeds in their hair before being forced to board the transatlantic slave ships, believing against the odds in a future of sovereignty on land. That is the power of seed. And I really want to uplift Dr. George Washington Carver, who Leah actually mentions in this article. I quoted her in an article from Yes Magazine. But if you don't know who Dr. George Washington Carver was, please do a little bit of research. He was a really incredible agricultural scientist. He died in the mid-1940s. And I would say in many ways, he was one of the most important, shall we say, fathers of restorative, regenerative, organic agriculture. He just had so much to teach. And as she writes here in the article, I'm intentional about noting in my article and speeches that Carver was one of the first agricultural scientists in the United States to advocate for the use of leguminous cover crops, nutrient-rich mulching, and diversified horticulture. He advised early 20th century farmers to dedicate every spare moment to raking leaves, gathering the rich earth from the woods, piling up muck from the swamps, and hauling it to the land. These are all such basic foundational things that we do as really good restorative gardeners and farmers. She went on to say, Carver believed that unkindness to anything means an injustice done to that thing, a conviction that extended to both people and soil. So I really want to thank Dr. George Washington Carver and Leah for their ongoing work. So soil is sacred. And I think what I'm trying to really build here is to recognize that across cultures, we see that soil is sacred. This is a picture someone took of me in my hands in soil. And I'm, again, like a prayer, if you want to just close your eyes, I want to read to you this quote from that Satish Kumar wrote in his book, Soil, Soul, Society, a fantastic book, highly recommend it. He's inspired me very much. He was born in India. I think he's in his late 80s now. And he says to us, soil is the source of all life, literally and metaphorically. All life comes from the mother soil and returns to her. Soil contains earth, air, fire, and water. If my outer body is soil, then my inner being is the soul. As I cultivate the soil to grow food for the body, I take care of the soul and cultivate love, compassion, beauty, and unity to realize the harmony within and without. So I wanted to speak a little bit to just to introduce a few things about biodynamic agriculture, and to say that for me, I was introduced to biodynamics in 1986. I was first introduced through the biodynamic planting calendar, which I will speak just briefly to tonight, and I will speak more to it in the longer course. But biodynamics, really the principles of biodynamics are very aligned, I would say, with also Indigenous worldview and Indigenous way of thinking about soil and earth as sacred. So we see Rudolf Steiner, who was the kind of founder of biodynamics. He grew up he was born in the 1860s, and he grew up in rural Austria, where he really was immersed in a very rural culture that honored the seasons and the rhythms of nature, and also where people were still really relying on herbal medicine for healing. So that's like kind of what he was born into. And though he went on to go to school and he's considered to be like a spiritual scientist, he really was asked by a number of farmers after World War I, which was so devastating to the soils of Europe. And the farmers asked him, could you help create some form of agriculture that had a healing aspect to it? And so biodynamics came out of that request. And something that I really appreciate, saying that Steiner believed that the environmental damages caused by chemical fertilizers, toxic pesticides, and intensive farming methods could not be easily remedied. And this is where Steiner was inspired to create these healing biodynamic preparations that would help to heal the earth and to help the soil. I imagine the soil just being more receptive. That's the image I have. These preparations help the soil be more receptive to both receive the spiritual impulses, the life forces that radiate up from the earth, and also that are radiating downward from the larger cosmos. So this is a picture of Ailey and me at Avena stirring one of the biodynamic preparations. And I'm just going to, again, just speak briefly to be planting some seeds, and I will guide you with some books if people are interested in a few different resources. But again, the ways that we stir and spray the different preparations, it's like we're potentizing them. And the way that I began to really understand this is from my own herbal background and also my fundamental understandings of homeopathy. And we, as herbalists, we know that we stir, we make all kinds of things in the process of stirring and praying and singing and giving our good energy, which is what we're doing here. So the different preparations are really meant to help enhance soil fertility, and not just from the physicality of the soil, but we're really looking to enliven soil. So yes, the soil's microbiological activity, we're really looking to increase in the soil's ability to hold water in really in good ways, and to stimulate the root growth of plants, which is so invaluable in growing really healthy plants. So these preparations are being able to help support that, and even more by helping the soil to be receptive, as I said, to receive the life forces of Earth, of our Mother Earth, and also from the cosmos. And I just wanted to honor Gabby, who is going to be one of our special teachers for the 6-week course. Gabby is a soil researcher and architect. She's also a third-generation Mexican farmer. And I'm so excited to be able to be a student and sit at her feet and listen to Gabby really describe to us so much of the ecology and the microbiology of soil, and to be weaving that with her Indigenous cultural roots and also her understanding of biodynamics. So we gave you some of the, like a link to be able to read a little bit more about Gabby and about what's happening in Mexico with biodynamics. But this is something that she said I loved. Gabby said the current agricultural processes by which we obtain food on a large scale have nothing to do with connection or with life processes, and much less with understanding life processes as something sacred. The word agriculture lacks culture in reality, which is what gives meaning to the connection between the indigenous worldview and biodynamics. So I'm excited that Gabby will be joining us and that we'll be learning more of what's happening in Mexico with the weaving of biodynamics and indigenous wisdom. So I also just wanted to remind us that biodynamics is more than techniques. And I think that for me, I say that because both conventional and organic farming thinking is a lot about soil amendments. How can I amend the soil with this or that, phosphorus, potassium, this, all these different things. And, if you have your soil tests done, I always say to somebody, it's not a bad idea to get your soil tested. You really want to know what kind of soil you have. And you want to be able to understand if there are some deficiencies. But what I'm trying to help expand is our thinking is that we are looking to, yes, continuously nourish our soil with all the things that really Dr. Carver was really leading us towards, which is really good cover cropping and leguminous crops and mulching and crop rotations and diversity, so many things that we know as good organic regenerative gardeners and farmers. And then we're also, I think for me, because my roots are from the Mediterranean and also from Ireland and the Celtic traditions, I do have a real resonance with understanding of, I would say, what Maria Gambutas is teaching, and also from the gift I've had of sitting in ceremony with a number of different Native American folks here from where I live. So I'm wanting us to expand the understanding of soil that is beyond just thinking about the materialism of soil, because we're really looking to understand, as I said, these forces that are in the earth and that are radiating from the cosmos, and that we all know that we are influenced. And that's why in this course too, I'm bringing in one of my closest, oldest friends who is an incredible astrologer and a healer and a Buddhist scholar to really help us understand even more deeply the influences of the cosmos and the planetary movements and how that affects us, our soul life as humans, would I say. Yeah. What I've written here comes out of a book, Cosmos, Earth and Nutrition, The Biodynamic Approach to Agriculture, which I will speak to that book in just a moment. But I wanted to speak to the calendar. So for people who have never seen what a biodynamic planting calendar looks like, I just wanted to give you a picture. This is from the Stella Natura Biodynamic Planting Calendar. And in the next slide, I will give you a resource for those of you who are interested in working with this calendar. This was my introduction to biodynamics in 1986. I have worked with this calendar every year since 1986, has been such an incredible teacher for me of being able to understand more deeply the elemental associations with the 12 zodiacal constellations, we start with Aries, Taurus, moving to Gemini, Cancer, all of those 12 zodiac constellations all have a relationship with earth, air, fire, and water. And this calendar comes out of the work of a woman, Maria Thun, for 50 years in Europe. She worked with really, really precisely with being able to understand which of these zodiacal constellations, when the moon is moving through them, do we have better germination and growth of our flowering, our plants that are flowers, of all of our vegetables and medicine plants that are coming from their leaves, also from our vegetables, our fruits and seeds, and our roots. So just to say, for me, the biodynamic calendar, I can't even begin to tell you how much it has made such a huge difference in me just organizing my planting schedule and my transplanting schedule, and also my digging of roots, which I will talk much more about that during the course. But this is a great calendar for people who are looking for guidance. So I've given you some resources, the Stella Natura calendar where you can order it. It also, those of you who might order from Fedco Seeds, they also sell the calendar. There's a wonderful prep maker here in New Hampshire. Some of you who are calling in from the Northeast, biodynamicsolutions.org, really wonderful people making their own preps. They also have some how-to videos on their website for those of you who are looking to potentially, try a little bit of biodynamics, as I say, as medicine for the earth. This is helping to support. So I'm going to walk you through a few of my favorite books. The reason why I wrote How to Move Like a Gardener is I wrote the chapter that I wished I had been able to read 35 years ago about biodynamics. So I wrote a very extensive chapter in this book as an introduction to all different kinds of aspects of biodynamics so that it would help to plant some seeds for people. And Richard Thornton Smith's book, Cosmos, Earth and Nutrition, is an excellent book for really even detailing even more around biodynamics. And also the Rudolf Steiner Agriculture. These are not the agricultural lectures he gave. These are just excerpts from different lectures that he gave about agriculture. And Wendy Johnson's book came out in 2008, continues to be a favorite gardening book of mine. She's not a biodynamic gardener. She's a long time Zen practitioner of Zen Buddhist meditation and just an extraordinary gardener. So her book, I think, is just for anybody looking to even get more inspiration about gardening. Fabulous book. I also wanted to just honor these two people, Michael Phillips, whose life's work has been so important around understanding the mycorrhizal aspect of our planet. And his book is one that I continue to read and study. And then this winter, I started to read Finding the Mother Tree by Suzanne Simard, who's also a really brilliant forest ecologist and forester in British Columbia. And a biodynamic manual is for those of you who are really practical and wanting to jump in, and even just if you want to learn a little bit about compost teas and fermented teas. Both Michael Phillips and the Biodynamic Manual book give us incredible instructions of how to be really good plant tea makers for the plants. And then Merlin Sheldrake's book, Entangled Life. This book came out last year, and my partner has read the whole book. I've read parts of the book, and he's just a really smart human being and very inspirational and helping to really understand the complexities of the fungal world. So both Michael Phillips and Merlin Sheldrake are gifts to us. As is the late Thich Nhat Hanh, just an extraordinary human being who's been a teacher for me for about 30 years. I've had the great honor to be at a couple retreats with him. And this book came out in just this past winter, and I received my copy just a week before actually Thich Nhat Hanh passed. And so this book is the one I'm reading by my bed. I read a little bit every night. And I also really like Adrienne Marie Brown's book, Emergent Strategy. I think these two books are really good. They will be good long-term guides for all of us in the journey of being human in this really tender time that has been tender for a very long time and is even more tender right now. I also wanted to honor Rowan White, who's a Mohawk woman and a seed keeper. She's the founder of Sierra Seeds, and she's the chair of the Seed Savers Exchange. And I wanted to really honor this book, which has recently come out. And I had ordered a copy, I don't know, maybe about a month ago. And the first printing is gone, and the second printing is about to come out. what kind of ancestor do you want to be? This has many, many Indigenous people who have written for this book. And I really want to uplift Rowan White's work as a seed keeper and as an Indigenous woman here. And so we also gave you some resources to be able to hear an interview with her based on the book. What kind of ancestor do you want to be? There's a short film that she helped produce, a podcast, and also there's a longer film that she's working on. So just again, really excited for all of you to have Maria Gambutas's work and Rowan White's work to be able to continue your own studies and learning and growing in this journey. And why would I call a quiet gardener and simple seed saver a revolutionary? I love that. First, you must understand what is happening with seeds. So this is also a fantastic book, The Seed Underground, A Growing Revolution to Save Food. And Janice Ray, this book came out a while ago. Highly recommend this book. These are these intricacies, I think, of why, for me, I just feel so passionate about soil and seeds and everything about nourishment and deep, deep honoring and repair and reciprocity that we as humans can be engaging in. And seeds, as Janice says, seeds have a built-in requirement for generosity. So as Karis had mentioned, I have been really paying attention to the ruby-throated hummingbirds for about 30 years in my own garden. And I actually became really inspired to start understanding more about seeds because I've been saving seeds also for many, many years. But there was one fall where I had hardly any echinacea seeds pollinated. And monarch butterflies and some of our native bees are the main pollinators. And so that experience is what really also deepened my own, I would say, lifelong study of seeds and pollinators and soil, and the spirit of seeds and soil is just all encompassing to me. So I hope that you might enjoy reading The Seed Underground. It's a fabulous book. And also the work of Vandana Shiva, I wanted to uplift. This is a photo that my friend Kira took when she visited Navdanya, which is the organic farm in Doon Valley in North India that Vandana Shiva helped to start. And Vandana says to us, seeds are a gift of nature and diverse cultures, not a corporate invention. Passing on this ancient heritage from generation to generation is a human duty and responsibility. Seeds are common property to be shared for the well-being of all and saved for the well-being of future generations, and hence cannot be owned and patented. That is a powerful quote for this time that we are in. And when I heard Vandana Shiva speak, she came to Maine a few times. She spoke at the Common Ground Fair 20 years ago in 2001. I also heard her speak at another college here in Maine. And I just have so much respect for Vandana Shiva at being the person who has continuously spoken out long before GMOs we were even beginning to understand what GMO seeds are and organisms are. Vandana Shiva was naming it. She's an incredible scientist, and really recommend any of her books that you see, and check out Navdanya. We gave you the link there. And this is actually a hand of figwort seeds. We save a lot of seeds on my farm at Avina, and figwort seeds are really prolific. And I love how prolific they are because they're not known so much by a lot of people, but I'm trying to get more people to grow them because the ruby-throated hummingbirds absolutely love these little flowers. The tuber of figwort actually is very medicinal, very useful for lymphatic congestion. So just giving you an image of seeds as we're beginning to clean our seeds. And also, Vandana says to us, seeds are an expression of hope. They bring to mind a cornucopia of harvest, large numbers of individuals, initiatives, and traditional communities the world over have long been engaged in safeguarding seed. So here's a bow to our seed keepers around the planet. So here's a number of seed companies that I have some understanding of being very dedicated to quality. And I wanted just to invite any of you who might have a really favorite seed company that you are working with, because I hope what we're going to continue to keep seeing is small seed companies everywhere who are dedicated to their own bioregion and the seeds that grow really, really well there. So I'm sure there are many that I haven't had the opportunity to know anything about. So please, if you feel like sharing in the chat, if there's a favorite for you, that would be wonderful. I'm also giving you some resources for garden tools. This is actually a photograph of the hori that these are from Avena. You can tell they're very, very well worn here. I always say it's a good idea to give them a little bit of linseed oil to kind of keep them, the wooden handle well oiled, and or you can see that the one on the left, sometimes we wrap colored tape around them because obviously you can lose them in the garden. So actually painting them a bright, bright color with non-toxic paint is probably a really good idea, actually, because they're easy to drop if you're not quite sure where you are in the garden. So they're one of my favorite tools, both for weeding around established plants and also one of my favorite tools as I'm starting to transplant seedlings. I oftentimes will use the hori to help make a beautiful place for me to place the seedlings in. And I've also given you here the Maine Indian Basket Makers Alliance here where I live. The Indian Basket Makers Alliance has been extraordinary at being able to continue to pass on the real incredible skill set that Native people here have of making baskets. And these are very special baskets of all different sizes if you go on their website. And you can, I always say it's important to have a special basket for when you harvest plants for medicine. And this is a book. There are a few more books coming out right now about being able to grow, to save seed. And this is one, The Seed Garden by the Seed Savers Exchange, that I think is a really good book. This is focused on vegetable seeds, on growing and saving vegetable seeds. I'm hoping maybe at some point, somebody in the medicinal herb world maybe will write the medicinal seed garden book. But for now, those of you interested in saving some seed, this book, and I'm sure there will be others that you might find are good on saving seeds. I'm going to kind of end our time together by just giving a few practical pointers around starting seeds indoors. But first, I want to say, for those of you who are gardeners, and if you've been saving some seed or you've been buying some seed, I always like to encourage people to put all your seeds, make some kind of a really special altar, put them in a special basket. Like my seeds right now are in a little basket, and I have this beautiful felted hummingbird that I put with them. And you want to just keep them out of the direct sunlight. It's always good to not keep your seeds in the sunlight. So just keep them in a special place. Give them your prayers, because these seeds it's almost like I have this sense that the seeds right now they're sensing the season, and they're sensing our own internal process as we begin to prepare ourselves to begin to be planting seeds. So I've just given you just a few simple little guidelines of some of the things that I think are important for planting seeds indoors. And then I've given you a little bit of guidance about sowing seeds. I will talk a lot more about potting soil and about making some potting soil in a longer course, but just to give you a beginning, like Vermont Compost Company is who I buy my potting soil from, because I buy a pallet because I'm a farm. But depending on where you live, do a little bit of researching if you're not going to make your own potting soil, of who's making really good organic potting soil. And I just wanted to say, do not buy potting soil that's sterile. Earth is not sterile. In my potting soil, I mix 25% of my own compost in my potting soil. We need our potting soils and our compost piles in our gardens to be living soil. So I'll just leave it at that. But you'll see all the little tiny herb seeds. They're so tiny. We just carefully press them into soil because they're light dependent. And the larger seeds we bury a little bit. So many of you know these guidelines, but I'm just giving a few little pointers. And then to say that, again, damping off can be so frustrating. And it often happens if there's soil, it's a soil fungus, but if there's too much moisture in your soil, if your seedlings are overcrowded, there's not enough good air circulation and they get cold. It's a perfect storm for damping off. That's why having a little fan around when your seedlings are starting to grow and you don't want them to be too overcrowded. So we get more skillful over the years with maybe planting our little seeds less close, giving them a little bit more space. Yeah. And I said that I use Neptune's organic concentrated kelp solution. That's what I use. I dilute it when I'm giving a little bit of water to help ease transplant shock. I use both the 5-flower formula, which is made, it's traditionally called Rescue Remedy. I'm trying to remember it as Rescue Remedy, but I know it is 5-flower formula. I always put a few drops in there to help ease a transplant shock. And then I talked a little bit about if you've got your seedlings and you're ready to harden them off. I know somebody I worked with here had one day they'd put all their tomato seedlings outside to harden off so they would begin to get used to being outside. And they had this really tough wind and it just completely, all of their plants that were outside hardening off or windburn. So you want to make sure that if you're taking your seedlings outside, that they have some kind of place of protection so they don't just get hammered by really strong winds or really intense heat, those kind of things. So there's lots of nuances to pay attention to when you're starting seeds. And I wanted to just mention as the last slide here about container gardening. And this is a slide of nasturtiums that are growing. We have several outdoor window boxes of nasturtiums outside of Avina's Apothecary. And this is the Alaska nasturtium. That's the variety. And this is my favorite nasturtium to grow. You can see it's got a variegated leaf. And I put these window boxes underneath the windows of where we blend our medicine and fill our bottles. And the hummingbirds, the ruby-throated hummingbirds love these nasturtiums. So they will come right up to the window and they'll be feeding on the nasturtiums. And who's ever just inside gets to watch the hummingbirds. It's such a joy. Nasturtiums prefer to have only half a day of sun, and they would prefer to be in the shade on the hottest part of the day. That's what I have found. And obviously we get to, even this particular variety, I nibble on the leaves and the flowers. So it's a wonderful edible and medicinal and pollinator window box. So consider growing nasturtiums for everybody. And I wanted just to end with my beloved hummingbird. I love this photograph. You can actually see their little tongue coming out to suck on the nectar of the fuchsia. So growing hanging baskets of fuchsias, the fuchsias really need to be in the shade, but is another way to bring the hummingbirds is the hanging baskets of fuchsia. And I remember Rocio and she was laughing at me recently because in Ecuador, when I was with her there a couple of years ago, the fuchsias grow like tall shrubs in Ecuador. And for us, we grow them in hanging baskets. But I wanted to honor Gertrude Simons Bonin, who is a Dakota Sioux woman who lived between 1876 and 1938. And she says to us, "The voice of the Great Spirit is heard in the twittering of birds, the rippling of mighty waters, and the sweet breathing of flowers. So thank you to each of you and to the hummingbirds. Yeah. So, and I want to remind you to mark March 25th on your calendars as the namesake of Earth Mother, and to light a candle tonight in honor of International Women's Day. So thank you.
Thank you, Deb. That was wonderful. So wonderful. So we were going to have a little bit of time for questions if folks had questions. And then we were going to talk also about the new gardening program coming up on Botanic Wise in a couple weeks. We're going to start the 6-week program. So Ryan, what order do we want to do things here?
Hey, can everybody hear me? I'm just...
Yeah, we can.
Okay, cool. That was fantastic. Thank you so much, Deb, for the presentation. Yeah, and I think we want to make some time for some Q&A about the presentation, but definitely want to make sure folks know that, if you've been to Botanic Wise webinars before, we'd love to, introduce a special offer for the new programs that are coming up and talk about them. But, we just want to wrap up the presentation first and say goodnight. But yeah, who is interested? It would also just be nice to see in the chat, like who's interested in learning about Deb's new program, the whole garden, because it's great to know if we should make space for that. How long we're going to go till. It's about 8 o'clock now. Okay, yeah, so there's definitely some interest. So Deb,
yeah, a little interest.
Deb, you can see that. Yeah, we're super excited about it. We've been working on this for a while, and if you've been on the list, you know that we did the program, the Healing Garden, last year, and so this is actually completely new. It's a perfect kind of follow-up companion to that program, and Deb and Karis have a lot to share about that as well. So let's take a few minutes and do some questions about the presentation, and we'll get in. We're going to share a little behind the scenes table of contents and everything. Of course, we have a special bonus for everybody who's here live. So, all right. So Abby and I and Karis can all kind of tackle the questions here. So we've got a couple hands raised, and feel free to use the chat as well to drop in questions.
I think they might be raising their hands to say they're interested, but
okay, cool.
Yeah, we have a question about the biodynamic soil prep. Is it appropriate for West Coast gardeners as well?
It's appropriate for all over the world.
Great question. People are asking about the program, like which topics are particularly going to be focused on. Do you want to go ahead and answer that, since the questions are coming about the program?
Yeah, so I'm super excited because I have a team of incredible guest teachers that we're going to be working together to kind of build a really vibrant course. And we named it the Whole Garden, from healthy soil to healing plants, because I really wanted to have a strong focus on encouraging people to really build like very alive relationships with your soil, to be understanding how to nourish your soil. We're going to have quite a good segment on really encouraging people to build really good compost, and also to be able to know how to build compost piles in community gardens, in urban areas. Ceci is going to be one of our guests who's done some fantastic work of building compost in Brooklyn, New York, especially with youth. So there's going to be a strong theme here of soil, healthy soil, building healthy soil, understanding your soil. I am going to speak in much more detail about the Biodynamic Soil Prep 500, because that to me is such a really good foundational preparation for people who are interested in all that we're talking about around soil. And Megan is going to really give us a wonderful class on understanding the biodynamic compost preparations. So soil is at the root of this class. And then I'm going to be speaking on I think the first class, I'm going to talk a lot about garden elements, really helping people understand the range of things to be thinking about in your garden design and in all aspects of gardening. And then I will speak very specifically to a number of different medicinal plants, because as you know, I am so dedicated to helping inspire and encourage and give skill set and confidence building for people to feel like I can grow that plant. So I'm going to get very specific with how do you start a number of medicinal herbs from seed, how you take them all the way to transplanting them into the garden, to how you gather them, to the medicine you can prepare from them, and then how to use that for medicine. So, I mean, I probably could speak for hours and hours and hours and hours, but I'm going to try to learn how to give to you the most I can so that these particular plants, people will feel really inspired. And many of them, some of them like chamomile, people might be growing, but I'll give you some tips that I've learned over the years. I've learned a lot from being successful, and I've learned a lot from not being successful. And maybe that's the gift that long-term gardeners can give to other gardeners, is the things that we've learned. Yeah, that we learned that didn't go so well. So, yeah, and I also have brought in, as I mentioned, I'm really wanting people to understand both the weaving from the biodynamic planting calendar. We're going to be working with the tropical zodiacal constellation and also understanding the astronomical system, because the biodynamic calendar works with the astronomical system, but Western astrology works with a different system. And so my friend Kwa is going to really explain to us kind of where the symbolism of Western astrology comes into play and how that interfaces with the astronomy of where things are what's actually happening. And so I'm pretty excited about helping people just understand even more, building that relationship on a daily basis, which we did last year with the moon. So I'm excited to begin, to again, keep encouraging each of us to be building those relationships with the moon and with the seasonal cycles and the rhythms, and to be understanding the ways that the movements of the moon and the planets also influence our inner soul life as gardeners and as human beings. So that aspect I'm pretty excited to be weaving in. Yeah.
Jocelyn has her hand raised to ask a question. Jocelyn, do you want to unmute? Abby, you might need to help that happen. While we're waiting for her to unmute, I just want to add in, people are asking about the days of the week that the class will happen and when it starts. The course starts on Tuesday, March 22nd, first day of spring, and well, close to the first day of spring. And Deb will teach the core classes every Tuesday, and guest speakers will be on Thursdays. And then we have a special added guest speaker, which is Gabby, the woman from Mexico that Deb mentioned in the presentation. And she'll be doing a 3-hour presentation on Saturday, March 26th. And yes, the classes are always recorded at Botanic Wise and available to you as long as you need them. So do we have any luck unmuting Jocelyn?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so immensely encouraged, and it just has, like, Deb always brings such a beautiful, generous spirit to everything that she does.
She does.
I'm so I'm just over the moon. So my question is there any further resources on, as someone such as myself who's going into growing for seed for herbs and flowers, would there be maybe any community out there to, carry this knowledge of saving seed as well? Thank you so much.
So Jocelyn, you're asking, I'm trying to understand what exactly.
Oh, sorry. So it's about saving seed from herbs and potentially also flowers. If there's anyone out there that that you're connected to within the course, or because there's just seems to be very little information out there to keep these wonderful seeds part of our natural ecology and in the biodynamic movement. So yeah, that's just my shot in the dark.
So you're wanting to know if there's other people. I mean, I will share a little bit because I do save seed. I haven't seen, so I was saying it'd be so beautiful if somebody wrote the medicinal seed garden book. But I think that if you had any specific questions, you probably could email Strictly Medicinals, because they are growers of medicinal seeds and they do sell medicinal seeds and they do a lot of saving of medicinal seeds. And I don't know if they have on their website, if they've written any things. They might on their website. You could check them out, Strictly Medicinals. You could see if, I don't know off the top of my head if Sierra Seeds, if she has written anything on medicinal plants. Yeah, I don't know if that's helpful, but both of those places might be places that you could even begin as some sources of investigation. Yeah.
So because there's so many questions about the course and because it's 8:07, we're gonna shift really quick to sharing our special bonus about the course for this webinar. That's something we always do at the webinars. Are you ready for that, Deb and Karis?
Yep,
And
sounds
Abby?
good. Let's get to it.
All right, everybody, drum roll, please. Okay, so we just put together this course, and the page just went live today, and Abby put together a $150 coupon toward the program. So we're super excited. We're only revealing this here at this live webinar because this is really the opening moment really for this brand new course. So we're just really excited to have a really generous offer for everybody today. And the coupon code is Seeds and Soil. And Abby can put the link in the chat as well. And I'll just show everybody, how to find your way here. Even after the chat, if you go to botanicwise.com, the whole garden is right here in the menu, because this is the primary focus at the moment for our team. And if you go through this page, you can see all the different things that are included in the program. This is really about offering skillful guidance and going through the process together in the community. So along with, a whole bunch of different skills that you'll be learning, also including a few other bonuses. We actually haven't finished publishing all the bonuses, so we'll be announcing some of those in the next week or so. But the whole garden journal, garden walk with Deb, we'll be having some connections scheduled for the community around this course in the Botanic Wise community, and also 15% off Avena products for all students. And all of the guest teachers, there's 6 additional presenters here, and you'll be able to read about them on the page as well and see their bios and learn a little bit about what they're bringing to the program to help round it all out. And I'm also excited to share that the full schedule is also published. So you can check your calendar, you can see all the different classes and read about them that are included in the program. And then inside the actual program itself, this is what you get when you purchase, is you'll gain access tonight when you sign up, is you'll have access to the full table of contents. And actually, so this is where all the classes will be published with the produced replays and notes and everything. And then all of the events will be scheduled here on this events calendar for the class. So if you've taken a Botanic Wise course before, you can RSVP, you can see which of all of the other students in the program are going to which classes. You can see a member directory of all the different people that are in the program. And we have an activity feed where you can post and share what you're working on, bring up questions, and our whole team and Deb Soule will be in here interacting with you throughout the program as well. So that's all hosted here inside the Botanic Wise community, where the replay for tonight's event will also be published. So I will just come right back to this slide here with the coupon code on it, because we're really excited to be able to offer that during this webinar.
We had a great question coming through from somebody who's a flower grower, wondering if this course would be appropriate for people who are gardening other things other than medicinals.
Totally. I mean, I think I wrote the book, The Healing Garden, because I wanted to inspire gardeners in general. And I love flower gardeners because your flowers are so special. And there's always going to be flowers that you're growing that have some medicinal value. So I hope that if you were inspired, like, for example, yarrow, I mean, we think of yarrow really as a medicinal plant. It's also, I mean, the white yarrow is the one we use for medicine, but the magenta yarrow and the golden yarrow are used as cut flowers. So I say any gardener can come, because there's always so much to be learning about soil and compost and healing plants and everything about the cosmos and the moon.
And I'm a cut flower enthusiast, so we'll talk about that in the community get together a little bit. I particularly love growing dahlias. That's kind of my favorite flower. So I'll add a little bit to the program.
There was a question about the price, and just wanted to make sure that, because we didn't mention this before, that everyone knows that Botanic Wise has a scholarship program. And it's one of the things that's so core to the mission, is making sure that we're connecting people with each other and with plants. And so please, feel free to reach out. We can put some details in the chat as well. So, we wanted to be able to, bring out coupons like this for our most dedicated audience members, which is you sticking around here after presentation has completed, but also make sure that there's a scholarship program for folks who want to be dedicated to this kind of learning environment, where the cost would be a barrier for them. So please be in touch about that. There was also a question about, is this appropriate for beginners or someone who has a lot of experience with gardening? Could you speak a little bit to that, Deb?
Yeah, I'm somebody who likes to work with a range I love to inspire new gardeners. And I think I chose the guest teachers to also be able to really speak to both new gardeners and experienced gardeners, because everybody who's teaching has different ranges of experiences. And I think all of us are really dedicated to both inspiring new gardeners and also inspiring seasoned gardeners, because I think everything that I spoke to tonight, I think has value, especially for seasoned gardeners who maybe have a very particular way that they have been gardening and working and maybe thinking and approaching soil and gardening. And I think by weaving a little bit of my own direct experiences with biodynamics, doesn't mean you have to become a biodynamic gardener. It's just offering people some skill sets and some inspiration and helping to expand, helping to have a little bit more of an expansive way of being in relationship with soil that's really, really alive and always in the forefront of our minds and our hearts. Yeah.
Sarah's asking sort of a big question, but can you explain how this program is different than a permaculture design course.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about permaculture design at all. When I talk about the garden elements, I am more going to be speaking to from a healer's garden. And I'm going to be speaking to creating spaces for birds and pollinators and garden benches and arbors and special altars. And like I've made an altar to the ancestors in my garden. So I'm going to be speaking to those aspects of gardens that are really helping gardens to be sanctuaries, to be places of both safety and healing spaces. So it's more on that level that I'm going to be talking about. I will be talking, as I said, about there's a whole class on tree medicine. So I will be addressing tree medicine and how to plant trees and how to think about designing trees into one's garden. All of those things will come in, but I'm not gonna address all the things of permaculture because I'm not a trained permaculturist. I'm really I have a lot of respect for certain aspects of permaculture, but the design pieces are more along what I talked about. Yeah.
Sharon's wondering if you'll talk about creating new garden beds.
Yes, totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
My husband and I are putting in a new garden. It's just sort of our gift to each other this year. So we're putting in a kitchen garden. We've been farming for decades and down the hill. And it's often, 25 acres to walk and get a bunch of parsley. So we're going to have a new garden. And I'm so excited to be applying what we're going to learn together into what we're doing. It's such a, my farming husband and I, what we do for fun is garden. So if you had a question, there were so many questions bombarding me. I couldn't keep up with them in the chat. So if you are waiting for a question to be answered, could you put it in the chat now? Again, just copy and paste. We'll answer just a few more questions before we let Deb go to her nightly rest. We have lots of great links shared, and I'm wondering, Abby, if you would collect the seed source, that there's a lot of seed sources that were shared. I thought that was really fun that you asked that, Deb. And maybe we could collect those and add that to the comments under the replay. Martha's wondering, what's the name of the person in Brooklyn who does compostings?
It's Ceci. She's one of our teachers. She's not there. They're not there anymore. But I think it's called BK Brooklyn. I can get it because I think the project continues, but Ceci has left that project. They were there for I want to say a couple of years. We'll find out, but I can get the link for people. You can post it.
And there's a question about the length of the classes, which I can answer. So the core classes taught by Deb are about 90 minutes long, including time for Q&A. And then our guest speakers speak for an hour, and other than our special guest speaker from Mexico, Gabby, I forget Gabby's last name, actually. She'll be speaking for 3 hours for a special presentation. Oh, this chat goes and goes. It moves along. Laura wants to know the days that the course is running. So it'll be Tuesdays and Thursdays every week for 6 weeks, always recorded. Felice is wondering, how can biodynamics benefit heavy, wet clay soil?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think Gabby's going to really talk about different types of soil. So I would say that, just to answer it briefly, that heavy wet clay soil is going to have a lot of other aspects to it besides the preparation. So the preparations aren't just going to do magic. There's going to be a lot of other aspects in being a good kind of ecological gardener that help heavy wet clay soil. So yeah.
And how about navigating drought conditions.
Yep, we'll talk about that.
Sharon says, I have a lot on my plate. Will we need to do tests? No tests. We will not grade your spelling or make you do any tests. Although you might want to do a soil test. Few questions about last year's class, whether it's still available. We have plans to open that again next year, but that registration is closed. Franny, will these classes be live during the day or in the evening? I prefer being present during the live class for the interaction. Yes, so the classes are, if you're in the East Coast, they are in the evening at this time, same time as this webinar. So they start at 7 p.m. to allow people to finish their work and get their dinner and settle in for a good, juicy class. There are some questions about the last year's moon class. We have 2 moon classes that are available in the Botanic Wise community. They were the free webinars that we did last end of February and in March on the full moon and the new moon, or the new moon and the full moon. I forget which way it was. And so you can find them, or Abby can help you find them in the Botanic Wise community. Hopefully you already have a free membership there. Does the course include how to grow and maintain particular plants and flowers?
Yes, and I think they're listed in the course description.
They are.
Yeah.
Yep. So about 20 plants particularly are discussed, although I'm sure we'll touch on more than 20. Some of them being trees too. And I think that's going to bring us to the end of our questions. Deb, thank you so much for your hard work putting this presentation together, for sharing your wisdom with so much generosity, for your thoughtfulness about all of the people and animals and plants that are at risk on our planet. Your prayers, your teaching, meditation. I'm so full of my heart for what you bring to the planet and grateful.
Thank you. And thank you, Karis and Abby and Ryan and Emma. You're a beautiful team of people that hold so much radiance in your hearts for helping to make a difference in our world. So I just really appreciate everybody. Yeah, all the light that we can offer right now is beautiful.
So those who are left, maybe you want to switch back to gallery and we can all hold hands.
And light a candle tonight.
Yes, before we light our candle, we'll hold hands in a little bit of sacred connection. I always feel lifted up by these events. Someday we'll all be in person together. And I expect lots of hugs.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan, for helping out. Thank you, Abby, for working behind the scenes tirelessly. Thank you, Emma. I think Emma's here too for your hard work on the website. And thank you all for joining in and being part of this great community.
Yeah. Good night.
Good night, all.